So good afternoon and welcome to the Checkit half-year results webinar with Keith Daley, Chair, and Aylsa Muir, Chief Financial Officer. Before I hand over to Keith, I just want to go through a few admin points. You're all currently on listen-only mode, and we will be taking questions at the end. And if you do want to ask a question, please do so by using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. The format today is a presentation from Keith and Aylsa, which will last approximately 30 minutes. And then, as I said, we'll take questions at the end. Following the meeting, you'll be directed to a short survey. We really appreciate it if you could complete that. And then, without further delay, I would like to hand over to Keith to take you through the Checkit half-year results presentation. Keith.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. I think this is the 10th presentation we've given today, so it's been quite a heavy day for us. So, as Alex has said, my name's Keith Daley. I'm Chair of Checkit, and I've been associated with the company for more years than I can care to remember, notably under its former name of Electron Technology. So I'm delighted to introduce Aylsa Muir, who has recently joined us as our CFO.
Thanks, Keith, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. And yeah, I'm delighted to be here. I think around 10 weeks in at the moment, so really new to Checkit. And you'll hear from me a little bit later when I come back and talk more about the financial and operations side.
Okay, so this is the Checkit 2020 interim results presentation. So our strapline is optimizing performance everywhere. We're a software company enabling large and complex organizations to track and improve their operational performance in real time. Now we have the necessary evil of the disclaimer slide, which I will swiftly pass, but that will be in the slide pack when distributed. So getting into the meat of the presentation, this is our vision slide. The world is changing. We all know that. Organizations need new ways of working. They must be able to respond quickly to opportunities and challenges. They must collaborate more widely and operate more efficiently. The problem for large, complex and highly regulated organizations is that it's not easy to operate efficiently on a global scale. In fact, it's hard. It's hard to get a handle on the day-to-day cycle of routine tasks, safety checks, compliance procedures and brand standards across multiple sites and multiple teams. So Checkit has created a smarter approach to operations management. So we are a technology company. What we do, though, is we use existing technologies to provide the solution to customers. So we combine mobile digital checklist and workflows with automated monitoring, providing customers with connected data-driven intelligence and peace of mind. And we draw together actionable real-time insights from multiple sources, providing our customers with new levels of visibility and control. Now, what does that mean in practice? So for people that are actually on the front line, and by front line, I at the moment, I generally mean mobile workers, and we must remember that 80% of the global workforce is mobile. They're not based at desks. So we guide and ensure that operators do what they should be doing at the right time. Then for middle management, we are able to track the operational transactions. We provide data, and that enables them to monitor the performance of the organization. And finally, for senior management, we can provide insights using all the data that's generated and enabling them to improve the business and use some of the latest techniques, including artificial intelligence. this is really how we sell ourselves to the large organisations and really demonstrate a value proposition. So all boards are primarily interested in three things. Number one is revenue. So Checkit actually helps deliver a customer experience and therefore improve revenue. But secondly, they're interested in maximum efficiency, cost reduction. Again, the Checkit way of doing things helps them do that. And finally, by getting people to do the right thing at the right time, they ensure that risk is minimised through ensuring that employees comply both with internal protocol and external regulation. Well, now all of this empowers organisations to continually improve in key areas, coming back to our strap line, optimising performance everywhere. Now, sometimes we have slight difficulty articulating in words what Checkit is about. So this is a visualisation, because they say a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. The organisations, so large organisations, in spite of appearances to the contrary, they're generally very messy. Checkit helps make sense of them. So they consist of widely dispersed teams in different locations, whether they're hospitals, labs, retail outlets, manufacturing, leisure sites, or whatever. And we equip operators with an app on their mobile devices, which prompts guides and logs actions. So that information is shared between teams and managers, providing insight appropriate to their responsibilities. It enables a level of collaboration that's usually difficult to achieve and certainly has not been achieved to date. And this whole thing is rapidly scalable across an entire organisation. So it can be quickly installed in a small area of an organisation, or there can be a large deployment. Senior executives can track performance via customised dashboards, comparing and benchmarking sites, seeing in real time what's working and what's not, and identifying better ways of doing things to optimise the customer experience, improve efficiency, and strengthen compliance. And the next step is to add chat capability, so the whole thing functions like a social network, with the emphasis, of course, on work. So that's actually doing things, and I would draw a distinction between something like Slack, which I would regard as a communication tool, whereas Checkit is about the work itself, and it takes the social network at one stage further. And of course, we're trying to do this in an international context. We are a UK company based in Cambridge, but of course we have our eye on the world. The UK is only 5% of global GDP. And so that is very important for us. So the whole thing is very complex. So moving on, those are the opening slides, and I'd just like to ask Aylsa now to talk about financial performance. She's also responsible for operations in the company, so she'll cover that area as well. So over to you, Aylsa.
Thanks, Keith, and good afternoon again, everyone. So as Keith says, I'm going to, there are two parts to the next few slides that I'm going to cover. I will go through the key headlines from our interim results for the first half of the year. Obviously, the full version is available on our website, the full published interims, but I will pull out the highlights and key headlines from our financial statements. And then in the second part, I'll give a little bit more introduction to myself. I've been in Checkit, as I said, around 2 months now. And then I'll also talk about that part of operations and some of the operational restructure we've been doing, certainly after sort of accelerated over the last couple of months. So I'll start off by talking about our revenue performance in the first half of the year, just in terms of some of the numbers you're going to see to make sure that we're clear. We're looking at this on a normalised basis. And this is because the acquisition of Checkit UK, previously Next Control Systems, occurred midway through the first half of last year. So we're looking at it as if we had a full 6 months of Checkit UK, if you like, to make sure that for comparative purposes and performance purposes, it makes sense. So the first half of the year reported revenue was at 6.4, which is an increase of around 2% on a like-for-like basis versus last year. Seen as a solid performance for the business, especially considering the amount of our revenue base that is dependent on engineers and field-based staff being able to attend customer sites, which I'm sure we can all appreciate was a challenge during the COVID crisis. So a 2% overall revenue growth year on year is seen as a solid performance. But what is interesting is when we drill down into the segmentation of that revenue, which ties in with how we're segmenting our business going forward. So I'm going to talk about the Checkit Connect revenue segment, if you like, and I'll add a little bit more colour to this, but you'll see anyone who reads our interim statements will see that we have operationally set ourselves up and our reporting under two very different operational segments going forward. And if we think about Checkit Connect as being the recurring SaaS business, Keith's already talked about that whole value proposition. Everything that he's just talked about really is this Checkit Connect area. It's a growth part of the business. It's a cloud platform. And should be heavy recurring SaaS revenue going forward. So that part of the business actually grew by around 15% versus the same time last year. And you can see an overall proportion and mix of revenue. That's a good news story. When we drill down into that 3.4, you can see our group recurring revenue of 2.3 million, which is part of that 3.4, actually grew at 23% on a year-on-year basis. So if we consider that Checkit Connect and on the back of that, recurring revenue is a core part of our future growth and this conversion to a true SaaS business, that's some strong trends going on underneath that overall solid revenue base. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that recurring revenue growth and what's been driving that in the first half, and give us an idea of where we're sort of bringing that growth from. So we talk about a SaaS pricing model. So there's a whole piece of work going as part of the whole value proposition to look at our entire commercial offering across our portfolio, standardizing and harmonizing prices post the acquisition of Checkit UK last year, and really looking at where we're pitching ourselves in the market and pricing ourselves compared to our proposition. We're unique in the market. We have a strong proposition. And what we've done is twofold, really. These first two blocks is certainly in our monitoring side of the business, we have managed to convert quite a significant amount in the first part, and this is ongoing through the renewal profile of our automated monitoring business into a subscription-based model that's more akin to a SaaS business. And that's an all-in price, one-off price, and longer-term contracts for that customer base in the first part of the year. As part of that exercise, as well as we roll out that subscription strategy, we have been able to take increases in certain areas of the market, as well as we standardize that across our customer base. And that, has driven not only an element of, the recurring growth you can see, but also has a gross margin improvement impact as well, as you will see in our interims. The other large sort of mover in recurring revenue is we did see, following a successful pilot, we did see a successful rollout, of BP across the UK and its own sites. So over 300 sites went live on the platform, as per previous notes out in the market, and that happened during half one, which is was really testament to the operations team across Checkit and how successful that was earlier on this year. It is also worth mentioning that we did see a very slight recurring detraction in Q2, and we referred to this in the interim statements as well, and that's where we did offer across some of our bigger hospitality clients the opportunity to defer payment and service for a number of months, as they were the hardest hit industry, as we all know, well publicised across COVID. Those customers are coming back, and by the end of this month we'll be back and paying in full, but it was something that we offered, so we'll see that come back in the second half of the year. I'm just going to go through the P&L headlines now in terms of the income statement. You can see on this one, just to be clear, we're talking reported basis, so not on a like-for-like anymore. This is on a pure reported basis, and hence why we see revenue actually double on reported, with that full 6 months of Checkit UK. What another sort of highlight and encouraging sign from the first half of the year also was this halving of the operating loss from continued operations versus the same period last year. And that's really testament to a few things. First of all, obviously, we've talked about the revenue and the gross margin upside. The business took a lot of, did carry through on a lot of initiatives in the first part of the year, particularly around furlough, job retention scheme. People took, staff across the organisation took salary reductions, which really helped offset the revenue challenges we were seeing on the once-off line. In addition, you know, further kind of looking at the whole cost base and gross margin improvements in general, following the acquisition and all the M&A activity from last year continued through. What is also encouraging in here is we actually managed to maintain our level of investment in new product, which for everything Keith's just talked about and we'll talk about shortly on the product roadmap has been critical. So we managed to hold those at previous year levels. A couple of exceptional items just to draw, just so that we understand the headlines on them. £500,000 of exceptional cost. These costs really are due to the integration of Checkit UK and the transitional services agreement following the sale of Bulgin last September. We'll see those certainly lower in the second half as we come out of that TSA, and obviously we definitely see those reduced down significantly. But they were as expected, and the discontinued profit of 900,000 is due to the sale of the Electron Eye technology assets, which was the last part of the legacy Electron business, which was sold for a consideration of around 900,000 in July. So all in all, that brings us down to our operating or our final PBT of 1.1 million reported for the first half, and a 600,000 improvement on last year, and an overall, we're pleased with that performance in the first half. I'm not going to talk too much about the balance sheet because I think it's reasonably steady. You can see it's stable. I will talk about cash because that's obviously a high focus area for us, as it is many businesses, but you can see a couple of things to call out is that deferred consideration. The sale of EET was actually that 900,000 is being paid over 2 years of instalments. So there was a deferred consideration that's appeared within the 5.6 million. But there was also quite an improvement in our working capital. So trade debtor balances were reduced, as was inventory in the first half. And we'll see that come through in the cash flow shortly. There's not really much else to talk about. Just a reminder that we do fully amortize our intangible assets in year, and our MPD spend of product around 500,000 in the first half of the year was fully amortized and is therefore shown in the income statement. So I'm just going to close off and finally on the sort of financial headlines. As we talked about, we did close cash at 13.4 million. This was higher than our expectations. And I'll take you through those key drivers. We reduced our cash balance by 900,000, and I'll talk about the key movers in that. So we talk about on the operational side, and all of these are things we've talked about in this presentation. So £1 million worth of investment in product, 500,000 of those integration costs, which are fully expected. So those are the key sort of cash outflows coming certainly from the income statement. Couple of balance sheet movements. We have some contractual lease liability payments, which are standard, but that improvement in working capital did help offset some of those operating cash outflows to the tune of around 500,000. And similarly, the board's decision to wind up the employee benefit trust and sell the remaining shares for around 500,000 in the first half also generated around 500,000 of cash, bringing us back to our closing balance of 13.4. So that was a sort of a very high level run through the key trends coming out from our performance in the first half. I think in summary, I think management is pleased with the performance. It's very steady. It definitely illustrates that the right moves were made to manage through what was an incredibly uncertain first half, not only for us, but for our customers and many other businesses as well. So I'm going to move away from the finance side now and talk a little bit. I'm going to talk about me and the board and some of the moves that have happened through the first part of the year. And then I'm going to concentrate and just give a little bit more colour around those two operational segments that we're now operating the business under. So Yeah, you can see me there. I joined the business in July as Chief Financial Officer. I step into the shoes of Andy Weatherstone, who is leaving the business. And I also, as not clear from the title, but as we said, looking after the operations side as well. I actually joined Checkit in July this year from one of the largest private equity owned software businesses, which was experiencing a significant amount of growth. I've been in software businesses and SaaS businesses for around the last 4 years, but been in finance around 20 plus years. Half of that was in a very large global corporate FMCG organization, where I sort of developed my finance skills, if you like, outside of not only the more traditional side of finance, but also partnering some of the best business leaders in terms of operations, sales, and commercial. And it's that experience coupled with working alongside different verticals and customer demographics, which hopefully gives me the skills to bring to Checkit, not only financially but also to support with how we set ourselves up operationally for future success. And so I joined my other 5 colleagues on the board, Keith and John, a large sort of history with the company and with Electron, John non-executive. We do also have 2 further hires onto the board that have happened during the first half. Rachel joined the board in February and joined with a sort of enviable track record in business management, technology, and leadership, and is really helping us in terms of how we shape that going forward. Sarah Coate joins the business and takes on the company secretary activities from Andy Weatherstone, but also she takes on that, but she's also the company lawyer too. So quite a few moves. Over 50% of the board changed since the beginning of the year, and I'm sure it won't go unnoticed that 60% of this board is now female. So in terms of our diversity at a board level, this actually brings us on our executive leadership team to around 28% female versus male. So, something I'm passionate about, particularly when we think about women in software. And I'm sure as I bed in more over the next few months, we'll hear more about that diversity agenda. So finally, I'm going to talk just a little bit more about, you'll see in our interims, we talk about the 2 operational units, and we really have spent the time through lockdown, and certainly an area of my focus over the first 6 months is around setting us up for future success in our operations. So, and you will see this in future communications and how we look at our results and performance. So we've got what we're calling the Checkit Connect segment and operational unit, and this really is the as a software element of the SaaS offering, if you like, and value proposition. It's all around those recurring services. These guys are the day-to-day face to the customer and those recurring services. And as we know in these and in operations in general, but it's really important that this part is scalable, efficient. A focus on continual improvement and allowing us to be as efficient as possible in the way in which we manage our processes, not only to build scale, but to ensure we remain competitive as we all know, is a dynamic market. And all of this is focused around the customer, given that this is as a service, preventing customer attrition, and being that voice of the customer and that feedback loop for the organisation is critical for this unit. And that Checkit Connect operations, from an operations perspective, is underpinned by 3 sub-functions, which will be familiar to people familiar with software, but customer support, professional services, and customer success. All about either proactive response to the customer or reactive, similarly. So that's how we're setting ourselves up going forward. And then the other part of the organisation is the building and energy management systems. And this is what was the core element of the Next Control Systems business that was acquired last year. And this is a highly trusted legacy business, consisting of some highly technical on-site installation and service engineers. And this is a good income stream and steady area of the business, if you like. It's not the growth, and it doesn't fit into the original, the sort of upfront vision, but it is incredibly important in terms of its the face of Checkit to some of these large customers, particularly some of our trusted customers for a number of years, and the revenue and leads that can generate to help invest in the growth area around Checkit Connect. So I'm going to, that concludes my part of the presentation. So I'm going to pass back to Keith to talk more about customers and product.
Okay, thanks very much, Aylsa. So this is a whistle-stop tour as to how we look at customers and markets. So when we started, to some extent, we were all things to all people. We tier the market into four. Tier 1 being the very large multinationals like BP, and Tier 4 being, if you like, these sort of mom and pop style businesses, of which there are 5.6 million in the UK. So as the product has developed, we've moved further up market, and now we are firmly focusing on those Tier 1 organisations, and we're not really in the Tier 3 and 4 market. Of course, if you do that, it necessarily means that you have to go global, because by definition, those companies are operating on a global basis. At the moment, most of our business comes from the UK, but going international is a key focus. And then you'll see on screen the areas of the world that we are aiming to grow in. So then looking at market verticals, there are 5 areas that we're focusing on at the moment. In theory, Checkit could be used in, well, any kind of business, because it's all about excellence in process. But it is important to focus and those are the areas. And so in each of those verticals, we have put our flagship customers in there, and as you can see, they are very prestigious names. So next, I'll deal briefly with some of the innovation that we're bringing into the product. This is what is going to happen in the near term. So first of all, at the operator level, at the moment, the solution can only be used on Android devices. That's going to change, and pretty soon we'll have a browser version which will enable it to be used on iOS, Apple devices, iOS, and also desktops. So that is to come shortly. Then we have alerts into workflow. So the concept is to join up the entire product. So it is one product. Checkit is one product. So at the moment, if you look at our website, we're sort of in transition. So you see three products. You see connected workflow management, connected automated monitoring, and connected building management. So increasingly, we're looking at the latter two as, if you like, plugins to connected workflow management, because of course, if you get an alert off a sensor, someone's got to do something, and that should go through workflow management. So that's very important to us, and it will enable us to cross-sell in hospitals where we have a reasonably strong presence in automated monitoring, because once the product is in the person's hands, they see all sorts of uses for that. So we think that's has great promise. Next, expansion of languages. We're in, I think, over 12 languages already, so we're well set up to do that. Self-install is very important, so that will enable us to scale more overseas. So I think we're hoping to sort of go into New Zealand shortly with a particular project, and there will be no Checkit members of staff going in there, that it will all happen remotely. And finally, something that I'm very interested in is the messy world of if you like, franchising. So it's a nightmare for franchisors to maintain their brand standards for the franchisees to whom they delegate business. And there will be a franchise version of the product coming soon in 2021. Right, so this is our COVID slide. I'm not going to read out each bullet point, but we actually see the whole COVID situation as an opportunity as workforces are fragmented. So it's a question of watch this space. Obviously, businesses at this very moment some of them are actually looking at their very survival. But as this phase dies down, we would expect to see an increasing interest in what Checkit has to offer. And finally, we have the outlook slide. Brand new business is relatively subdued, but there were some projects which had started prior to COVID, and they are starting to pick up again. And of course, business from existing customers who know about the solution and have confidence in it. There is some analysis published, and it will be on our website tomorrow, I think, from Equity Development. And basically, we believe that our route to profitability is on track. We did withdraw guidance for a while, but we are reinstating, and we're looking. We're still looking at the same time frame, which was around 2023. And you'll see that Simon Thompson seems to like us, and you see the quote from him, which calls Checkit COVID-19 technology winner. So this concludes the formal bit of the presentation. So I think we now move to Alex for any questions there might be.
Thank you, Keith, for that presentation. Yes, we're now going to move to the Q&A section on the webinar. Just as a reminder, if you do want to ask a question, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Type your question in there, and we'll try and get to all those questions. We've had a few questions ahead of time, and we've had a few questions come in today, so I'm going to try and cover all of those. We've had a couple of questions around BP, so I'll start with that first one now. And the question is, how likely is there to be a follow-on deal to roll out the BP solution to further sites and geographies, and what are the likely timelines? And do new customer sales require much customization, and is this charged for?
Okay, well, I think I'll probably take both of those. Well, firstly, I should say I never believe anything until we've actually had a signature on the dotted line. And there has been a small follow-on deal in the UK. So BP have 324 owned petrol stations and 900 franchise petrol stations, but they're taking the view at the moment that they will put new sign-ups for petrol stations on the system if they're franchisees, and perhaps deal with the existing ones later. So there already has been a follow-on in the UK. As far as the agreement with BP, it was not specifically for the UK. It was a framework agreement designed to be a global framework agreement, and the idea was that the UK should be used as a blueprint. That is still my understanding is the philosophy. I'm on slightly shaky ground, because I'm sure BP don't necessarily want their business to be talked about in an open meeting. But should we say we remain hopeful on the basis of certain knowledge. Right, the second question again, what was that, Alex?
Do new customer sales require much customization, and is this charged for?
Right, well, the idea is Checkit is a platform and is customised by the customer itself. And I would contrast Checkit with most other type solutions where there's massive amounts of programming, which is inordinately expensive for the customer. Where we do extra work, yes, we do charge for. In the past, perhaps we haven't charged as much as we should have done, but shall we say there is attention to that matter.
Okay, thank you. Another sort of question on the customer side, and this time in respect to the NHS. So are you making much progress with the NHS? Can you say how many hospitals you're currently working with, and are they just taking the monitoring services, or are they also using your workflow management solution?
Right, so we're in something up to, I think the number is about 120 hospitals at the moment. It's various departments, and for those who know about the NHS, it's fairly fragmented, shall we say. So you'll find fragmentation certainly between hospitals and often between departments in a particular hospital. So there is a push within particular hospitals to try and get a Checkit solution within the whole hospital, not just individual departments. As far as the workflow management versus automated monitoring, so we have a lot of business from the NHS via our acquisition for automated monitoring, which of course they didn't have workflow management. So as I said in one of the earlier slides, what we are doing is joining up workflow management to be part of the entire solution. Yes, we are in hospitals for workflow management, and largely through activity from our sales and marketing team in Cambridge, if you like, the original Checkit. But it's a key focus, particularly in 2021, to get workflow management rolled out across as many hospitals as we can.
Okay, thank you. A question now on your competitors. Could you tell us who your competitors are, and why would customers choose Checkit over your competitors?
Right, well, it's simply, this does sound rather glib and smug. And so at the moment, there aren't any competitors that compete with us across the whole range of things we do. Now, in terms of individual bits of what we do, of course there are competitors, and particularly in connected automated monitoring and connected building management, those competitors are generally quite fragmented. So I could name individual competitors. In workflow management, frankly, in terms of real-time operations management, which is where we are, in terms of what we do with the customers that we work with, there is nothing. And the evidence for that is that BP, an absolute large, enormous company, they did scour the world, and they came across Checkit. So I think that's that. I think I'll stop there because I could go on forever. But that's my answer.
Thank you. Now a question on pricing. You talked about improving pricing in this first half. What is the scope to improve price further and increase gross margins?
Shall I take that one?
Yes, sorry, yes, I've hogged the limelight, Aylsa.
No worries at all. Yeah, so I did talked a little bit in the revenue piece about how pricing and standardizing, harmonizing our pricing across one element of our portfolio had resulted in price increases. That work is ongoing. First of all, there's the remaining base of that customer portfolio, but I think there's an opportunity, particularly if you take Keith's comments previously about the competitor landscape. That does make it very difficult to look at what the correct pricing in the market is. So there's a lot of focus on that, and I think there is more scope to look at our pricing strategy across the total portfolio, and as we combine it into one offering going forward.
Okay, thank you. A couple of people have mentioned your large cash pile and asking the question, are you planning to make on any acquisitions to augment your current proposition?
I think I can talk generally in that we're always open to ideas. We're very mindful of the fact that the typical acquisition, not by us, but should we say others, fails. So we have quite a high bar. But yes, that is part of the agenda. And at any one time, I will be talking to people about an acquisition or another, and there's a high failure rate. But it's just something part of what we do. There's nothing that's going to be announced imminently.
Okay, thank you. Just as a reminder, if you do want to ask a question, please type that into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Question coming in here about management structure. Could you talk about the I guess the full-time executive management? Is Keith Daley's position as chairman, is he also effectively doing the job of a CEO?
I'm going to ask Aylsa to answer that question.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me joining, obviously, in the last couple of months, and I think at the moment there's, you'll have seen from the first half of the year, and also what the future looks like, and what we've been working on operations, the pure amount of work to do. So it's probably right that Keith at the moment is heavily involved in the operational running of the business, probably to the level of a CEO for definite. There's more hires going on. Keith can sort of embellish on this if he wishes, in terms of sales and marketing leadership, etc. To really sort of, I don't think we're completely there yet, but it's certainly making a lot of progress. So I suppose yes is the answer to the acting like a CEO or playing that role of the CEO. I suppose, Keith, don't know whether you want to embellish on that further from a personal perspective.
No, I think you've put it very, very well. So I'm very pleased to have Aylsa, because there's just one part of the business where I can just entrust that with her, and basically the progress in the past is it 10 weeks? It's been absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Keith. We've just got one more question at the moment, and that is, you've talked before about how excited you are about the potential for workflow management. Could you just comment on how this area of the business is progressing?
What can I say? So sometimes it's quite, as we said, it's quite difficult to articulate what it is. If you're if you're new on the scene, if it's a new type of product, you might think that you've got a clear run, but you have to kind of explain what the product is, how it works. Sometimes, if you have some competition, they do some of opening up of the ground for you. Now, I think we've come through that phase of explaining what it is, but sometimes we've wished there was more competition. And I really see the workflow management. So in 5 years' time, so this is a relatively small area of the business at the moment, although we're putting a lot of new product development in there. But I see it as being the biggest side of the business in 5 years' time, because every business needs process, but not all businesses need the other two bits that we talk about.
Great, thank you, Keith. We have no further questions, so that brings us to the end of today's webinar with Checkit. Thank you very much for attending, and as you leave, you'll be asked to complete a short survey, which we'd really appreciate you doing. If you have any questions or think of any further questions that haven't been answered today, please send them in to info@yellowstoneadvisory.com, and we will endeavour to get back to you. Just before I hand you back to Keith for a couple of final words, just to say that our next webinar is on the 24th of September, when we have Simon Young, fund manager of the AXA Equity Income Fund, talk about his investing experience over the last 20 years. It's called Unearthing Winners, Avoiding Losers and Learning from Mistakes. And you can register for this webinar by going to www.yellowstoneadvisory.com. So can I just now hand you back to Keith to close the webinar?
Thanks, Alex. Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for their time. So we think we've reported solid half-year results. We as management believe we know what we're doing, and we continue to invest in new product development, and we see many opportunities lying around, and we're just looking forward to our next phase of growth. So that's it, but thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.